Hello, my name is Emily, and today I'm going to be discussing my midterm, Disaster Science in Pop Culture. I chose the movie The Day After Tomorrow because I was already familiar with it and I liked that movie. It discusses climate change, more so global cooling versus what we usually hear of global warming, and other events such as the tsunami in New York and the hailstorm in Japan and the tornadoes in Los Angeles. The movie depicted mainly white men, able-bodied. There were two women. One was Asian, but she wasn't around a whole bunch. And then there was also a Scottish, I believe he was a Scottish black man. I think this kind of is accurate to the field, although we have more programs for women and people who are not white, trying to break into the field and get away from that Eurocentric view of science. But it's still very difficult to, dealing with stereotypes and even stigma, stuff like that. So I think it is still accurate, but I think it's better than what we had 50 years ago. One concept that really confused me was the tornado scene in Los Angeles, because even though the movie did state, like, oh, this is unprecedented, Los Angeles doesn't have tornadoes, blah, 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 it was just to an extreme. I would find it very odd that a place that never has tornadoes now suddenly has 3 or 4 of them, and they all combined to create this super tornado. So I actually was able to find data from NOAA. If a tornado is to occur, it is more likely that it could split off and create a twin tornado or something like that. And it's very rare to see 3 or 4 in the same area, and there's definitely not going to combine to create some mega thing. The documentary I chose was The Great Alaska Earthquake. It went into more depth about other things as well, such as the tsunami that happened after the earthquake, glacial melting, breaking off. It also discussed volcanoes, as well as ice caves that form in Alaska and all the ice melting and stuff like that, things that can happen in Alaska. So any geological event you could think of happens in Alaska. The scientists were unremarkable. They were mostly white men. There were no women whatsoever. I don't even think there was a black scientist or a scientist of any other ethnic background. They didn't go into their stories at all, so there wasn't anything interesting there. There was a woman who was a witness to the earthquake who described in the beginning, but other than that, it was white men throughout, except for the female climber during the ice cave and exploration. The data in the movie wasn't too dramatized. They were talking about, lack of technology, especially for such an unprecedented event. They used graphs and charts. They actually did use satellite imagery, which I remember going back to the wildfires. NASA uses satellite imagery to detect storms and stuff like that, movement, so that I found that was kind of accurate, although different because, they had to predict stuff with such rapidness, whereas we might not be able to get to that point, especially when it comes to earthquakes. We have to be very fast. I don't think it necessarily changed my view of the scientific method, though, because it's a movie. I'm willing to see that it's a dramatization. The two differences in the facts of geological subject, it's in the movie they stated, oh, well, a glacier the size of Rhode Island just fell off and, caused this massive problem, the tsunami and everything that happened, wiping things out. And in this Great Alaska Earthquake film, they stated the largest glacial melting they've seen is the size of small cities. So we haven't necessarily gotten to stateside size blocks of ice quite yet, but we could be headed there. And another thing is, like I said, the rapid succession of events. I always see that in geological movies, that it is a rapid, extreme change, whereas we're still seeing 20, 15 years, maybe 100, but things are quickly catching up. My thoughts on geology haven't changed necessarily. I think, obviously it was made this way for dramatization, to be sensationalized. So I think you have to take facts with reality, but it obviously hit me in the face because it was like, oh my gosh, climate change, yeah, this is a problem. and it's a problem many people don't think about. But this something like this could happen despite it being dramatized. It's not entirely false either. And these are my references.